Having established full control over the interfluve in 638, the Arab Caliphate abandoned the movement deep into Persia and focused on strengthening its power in the occupied territories. At the same time, the Persian Shahinshah did not plan to give up Mesopotamia and began to hastily draw forces from all regions of his country. Meanwhile, the Persian ruler of Awaz, Hormuzan, who had previously taken part in the Battle of Qadisiyah, began to raid the interfluves occupied by the Arabs on the orders of the Shahinshah. Since the Persian raids prevented the Rashidun Caliphate from strengthening its power in the interfluve, the Arabs had to act. By 640, Hormuzan received reinforcements from the Shah of Persia, allowing him to act more decisively. The Persian army under the command of Hormuzan concentrated near the city of Tustar. This became known to the Arab Caliphate, who sent a large army under the command of Abu Musa towards the enemy. When the Arab army reached the outskirts of Tustar, a bloody battle broke out in which the Arab Caliphate won. The Persian army was defeated, and Hormuzan himself was captured. Historians claim that Hormuzan converted to Islam and became one of the advisors to Caliph Umar. True, later he became one of the organizers of the assassination of Caliph Umar. Having won a victory at Tustar, the army of the Arab Caliphate continued to move deep into the territory of the enemy and laid siege to the city of Susa. The city was defended by an experienced garrison, but after a long siege that lasted several months, he capitulated. Having captured Susa, the Arab army continued its offensive and a few days later captured the city of Juanda Sabura, which was of great strategic importance. Thus, as a result of a rather successful offensive, the Arab Caliphate managed to establish control over the province of Khuzestan. Deciding to stop there, the Rashidun Caliph offered the Shah of Persia to make peace, but Yazdijerd III, who still planned to return the lost territories, refused. The Persians hastily prepared for the upcoming battle with the Arab Caliphate, which was to be decisive. Near the city of Nahavand, the Persian Shahinshah planned to raise a huge army, which was to consist of both recruits and experienced veterans called up from all parts of the empire. When the Arabs learned about the preparations of the Persians, they also began preparations for the upcoming battle. The Rashidun Caliph at first wanted to draw all available forces for a decisive battle with the Persians. In the end, it was decided not to transfer detachments from Palestine and Syria to Persia, since there was a high probability that Byzantium could use this to return the lost territories. The Caliph decided to use all detachments available in the interfluve, as well as additional forces transferred from the Arabian Peninsula, to continue the attack on Persia. Having gathered forces, the Arab army, led by Numan Mukaren, advanced towards Nahavand. Before the decisive battle, the Arab Caliphate had about 30,000 soldiers at its disposal, while the size of the Persian army under the command of Firuzan was about 60,000 soldiers. Some historians claim that the Persians had more than 100,000 soldiers at their disposal, but this figure is highly likely to be exaggerated. The Arab Caliphate sent its vanguard to the vicinity of Nahavand to reconnoiter the situation. Detachments of the Arab vanguard, arriving in the vicinity of Nahavand, saw a large camp of the Persian army near the city, but they could not go unnoticed by the Persians. The commander of the Persian army, having received news of the arrival of the Arab vanguard in the vicinity of Nahavand, began active operations. Despite the fact that the Persians had a numerical advantage, they did not believe in an easy victory over the Arabs, since in the past the Arab Caliphate had repeatedly defeated their army. Therefore, in order to increase his chances of success, the Persian commander ordered his men to take up defensive positions. Persian troops blocked the road leading to Nahavand, and also took up defensive positions along a nearby stream. The positions of the Persian troops were the most advantageous since behind them was a mountainous area, which excluded the possibility that the Arabs would make a maneuver and attack their rear. The Persians also fortified their positions with the help of defensive structures to exclude the possibility of breaking through the defenses of the Arab cavalry. In turn, the Arab army, having arrived at the site of the upcoming battle, began to take up positions opposite the enemy units. Despite a series of victories, the Arabs took the upcoming battle seriously and tried to find an opportunity to make a roundabout maneuver. Unfortunately, For the Arabs, the Persians chose the most suitable place for defense, so the Arabs somehow had to storm the fortified positions of the enemy in the forehead. Having received the order, the army of the Arab Caliphate launched an attack in all directions. The Persians, in turn, met the enemy with a hail of arrows. Despite the massive shelling, the Arab army continued the attack, and after some time the troops of the Rashidun Caliphate crossed the stream and reached the enemy positions. A bloody fight ensued. The Arab infantry fought bravely, but the Persians did not plan to retreat either. After some losses, but failing to break through the enemy's defenses, the army of the Arab Caliphate received an order to retreat to their original positions. As night fell, the fighting ceased as both sides recuperated. On the morning of the next day, the army of the Arab Caliphate again launched an attack. The Arabs, like last time, under a hail of arrows, reached the enemy positions and started hand-to-hand combat. The battle was even more bloody than the previous day. The Arabs fiercely attacked the enemy, but the numerical superiority of the Persians, as well as the positions they occupied for defense, did not allow the Arab troops to succeed. Both sides suffered serious losses, and after dark the Arab detachments stopped the attack and returned to their positions. The commander of the army of the Arab Caliphate realized that if he attacks the fortified positions of the enemy several more times, then his army may lose its combat effectiveness due to the losses incurred. Therefore, he ordered his men to take up defensive positions and wait for the enemy to attack. Unfortunately for the Arabs, the Persians were commanded by an experienced military leader who was in no hurry to leave positions convenient for defense. He was well aware that if the Arabs did not continue their attacks, then very soon they would begin to run out of food and they would have to leave the vicinity of Nahavand. To force the Arabs to continue their attacks, the Persians ordered their archers to approach the enemy positions and begin shelling the Arab infantry. Caught under a hail of arrows, the Arabs began to suffer serious losses, but iron discipline did not allow them to launch an attack without an order. By evening, the Persians stopped shelling enemy positions and returned to their positions. The commander of the Arab army was well aware that he was in a very difficult situation. The fact is that attacks on the fortified positions of the Persians were useless, and he also could not wait for an enemy attack under a hail of arrows, since a large number of soldiers died from enemy shelling. In this situation, the Arabs decided to use a military trick. On the morning of the next day, false news about the death of Caliph Umar began to spread throughout the Arab camp. This news was spread in such a way that the Persians could hear it. In the middle of the day, the entire Arab cavalry defiantly left the camp and hid behind a mountain range unnoticed by the enemy. Even when they saw that the entire cavalry had left the enemy, the Persians were in no hurry to attack his ranks, as they were afraid of a trap. Realizing that the enemy had doubts, the commander of the Arab army ordered his infantry to begin a retreat from the vicinity of Nahavand. Observing the retreating enemy units, the commander of the Persian army gave the order to begin his pursuit in order to try to inflict maximum damage on him. In order to attack the retreating Arab infantry, the Persians deployed most of their army. In turn, the Arab infantry continued their retreat until they were satisfied that the Persians were far enough away from their fortified positions. Then, having received the order, the Arab infantry stopped and took up defensive positions to meet the attacking enemy. A bloody hand-to-hand fight ensued. When the Persian infantry got bogged down in battle, the Arab cavalry, which had been in ambush behind the mountain range all this time, began active operations. The Arab horsemen came out of the ambush and swiftly attacked the enemy, intending to blow him to the rear to put him to flight. The Arab cavalry was never able to attack the rear of the Persian infantry as it was counterattacked by the Sassanid cavalry. The Persians managed to stop the attack of the Arab cavalry and impose hand-to-hand combat on it. During the battle, the commander of the Arab army died, but the Arabs continued to fight fiercely and very soon began to push the enemy infantry. The battle continued until evening, and when it was already beginning to get dark, the Persian infantry faltered under the onslaught of the Arab Caliphate and began to flee. Watching the infantry flee from the battlefield, the Persian cavalry decided to follow suit and also began to flee. Having defeated most of the Persian army, the Arab army attacked the remnants of the Sassanid army, which did not participate in the last battle. This time, the numerical advantage was on the side of the Arab Caliphate, and the fighting spirit of the Persians was broken. Therefore, the remnants of the Persian army were quickly put to flight. After the defeat of the Persian army, the Nahavand garrison, realizing the hopelessness of their situation, was forced to capitulate. Having lost its army near Nahavand, the Persian Empire could no longer offer organized resistance, so the righteous Caliphate only needed to suppress the resistance of individual provinces. The Rashidun Caliph divided his army into 3 parts and sent them to different parts of Persia. Arab armies rapidly advancing subjugated one Persian province after another. Meanwhile, Yazdijud III was frantically trying to raise a new army to try and stop the advances of the Arab Caliphate. In his wanderings, Yazdijud III reached the city of Merv, whose ruler, with the support of the Turkic prince, tried to kill him, killing the Shahinshah's retinue. Yazdijud himself managed to escape, but was soon killed by a miller, where he stopped to spend the night. As for the Rashidun Caliphate, very soon he managed to establish control over the entire territory of the Persian Empire. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click on the bell so you don't miss new videos.